guys, Gary Alvarez is back, and today I'm going to give y'all 2 reasons I think Wisconsin basketball could make a deep March run, and 2 reasons why I think that idea is ridiculous. Good stuff. You love it when you get a little bit of both in this one. I invite everyone to like and subscribe. Make sure you see it. Makes it easier for me to give it to you. Really appreciate it. So the thing that has been interesting to me is I think this past week for Wisconsin basketball, a pretty unimpressive, and I think I'm being charitable there, road loss in Columbus to the unranked Buckeyes, who is a solid team, by the way, followed by a little bit of a slow start, but a pretty solid overall win over the Iowa Hawkeyes, a team I've been reminding anyone who will listen to me was ranked 6 spots ahead of the Badgers in the net rankings heading into that game, and they still remain robustly ahead of Wisconsin after for no reason. But this week, I think, kind of hit all of the good and all of the bad, hit the highs and lows, hit the ceiling and floor of what this team could be and has been. Even on the relative heater that Wisconsin is on, which is 10-3 in their last 13 games, 6th place in the Big Ten, solidly on the right side of the bubble, hoping for a 6 or 7 seed, with some of the best wins in NCAA basketball on their resume already, and a couple more chances to get them, once at Purdue and another one in the Big Ten tournament. Wisconsin's having a objectively very good season, but it is a season that could go a lot of ways in March. Okay, so as I teased at the outset, I'm going to give you 2 reasons why Wisconsin can make a deep run, and 2 reasons why, if someone were to make a counter argument, why they cannot, or why they will not. Number 1, why they can. And this is something that has become more legend and more of an axiom, probably than something with actual evidence, but talented, senior, junior, talented, experienced backcourts get things done in March. Talented backcourts get things done, and guys, especially when they're both locked in. And Boyd is more locked in, seems like more often than his counterpart, Johnny Blackwell, is. But when those guys are both cranking, Wisconsin, I won't say unbeatable, but they are an incredibly difficult out, who is incredibly efficient offensively when Blackwell and Boyd are both bringing their A game. If I were hypothetically, let's say, a 1 seed or a 2 seed, and I'm having to face those guys on a Saturday or a Sunday to get to the Sweet 16, I'm saying FML. Why did I get this draw? I work all season to be a number. I'm Duke or one of these other highfalutin, Houston or something, and not to say that they wouldn't be significant favorites still, but they wouldn't love seeing the Badgers in their way there. So my number 1 reason, as I said, is they have a backcourt with an incredibly high ceiling. We've seen it, and it's the kind of thing that bodes well for March success. Just is what it is, guys. Unless Blackwell and Boyd suddenly forget how to play basketball, I don't think that's going to happen. That's something they have going for them. It's good to see. Okay, I'm going to give you, since I don't want to do like 2 positives and 2 negatives, I want to give you 1, 1, 1, 1. I'm going to give you the negative. Kind of related to this a little bit is why Wisconsin will not make a run in the NCAA tournament, and it has been inconsistency from key players. Everyone on this team has had a game or games or stretches where they have been less good than they should be. And it's easy for a fan to say this, but you can tell sometimes by body language and effort that's not, it's difficult to hide that. And as much as I like him personally, and I like him as a player, and he is vitally important to any success this team has had and will have this season. But there have been moments, and I would be remiss if I did not mention this, where John Blackwell, for example, just hasn't looked as dialed in as he could be. I've talked about this earlier in some of the other guys in other podcasts, like Lockdown Badgers have noticed this too. I'm not an outlier. Where I've wondered aloud if there's an injury or something going on there, because his general baseline is so good that when you're not seeing it, it's pretty obvious. And I understand that foul trouble, for example, against Iowa was a big reason why his scoring was down, but he just didn't look as engaged as some of these other guys. How many games have you watched where Nick Boyd has looked not engaged? He's had games that have been better than others, significantly better than others. He's had some stinkers, not many, but he has had them. But it's never been effort. Or he's never looked engaged, like disengaged. He's never had back-to-back plays, for example, where someone just kind of runs by him on defense. We've seen that from JB. And maybe it's the burden of talent in the sense of he knows how good he is. He knows, not that he can score at will, because he can't score at will, but sometimes when it comes easier for you than it does for some other folks, you leave some things on the court that you wish you hadn't, looking back. And Greg Gard has kind of tiptoed around this all season, periodically when it has come up, but he has just simply not been as good as he needs to be every game. I don't mean there's not going to be better games than others. Of course, that's a fact. But there have just been times when objectively it doesn't look like he's quite as in it as he needs to be. And, for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, in order to make a deep run in March, or even a 2-game run, 3-game run in March, that needs to be turned around. You need to know what you got there. You need to be able to rely on it. And so reason number one of why they're not going to make a run in March has been inconsistent play. And by the way, I'm kind of labeling it on. John Blackwell has far from been the only person this has happened to, but he is the most important, and I'll say the most frequent. So it's doubly bad there when it isn't clicking. So that's the other one. Reason number two why I think they could make a deep run in March. And there were more than 2 potential reasons I could have had in this list. I'm kind of limiting it to 2 just to make it an efficient show, hitting the top level ones. But this team has a tremendous amount of offensive firepower. I'm going to stop you before you come back and say, well, that's great, but sometimes they miss shots and some of the defense doesn't look very good. I understand that, but there aren't too many teams with incredibly high offensive output, points per game, that are elite defensive teams. Find me one. You're not going to find them. And Wisconsin certainly is not an elite defensive team. There are breakdowns, even in the games that are good. There are breakdowns that are frustrating to see, like we just had even in the Iowa game, first 5-6 minutes. I don't know what that was. Easy baskets. But generally speaking, they're very solid. So when teams are scoring efficiently and a lot of points, it does put a lot of pressure on their team to have a game. Again, that doesn't mean that Wisconsin can't come out in an NCAA game and put up one of those 20 to 25% three-point shooting nights. If they do that, they're not going to hit their ceiling. It's the kind of game you get upset. This is the kind of way you get upset. JMU game, for example. But if they are, and again, we're having game after game after game after game, with very small exception, where we're shooting above 45%. The three-point shooting is hovering between 35 and 40%, if not higher. It's happening time and time again. And the efficiency has come to define them far more than any inconsistency offensively. So the baseline is good on offense, maybe really, really good. And the outlier is bad offensive game. So, I haven't done a longitudinal study on this, but teams who tend to be successful in March tend to have good, efficient offenses. Like they tend to have really good backcourts. So those are the 2 that I'm checking that give me some optimism regarding the Wisconsin Badgers' chances to break their 9-year streak of not making the Sweet 16 and have a little bit of depth in their March Madness run. My second negative. I promised 2 of each. Second one where I think I could see them bowing out early is, and this is sort of a corollary, but it's improved lately, so it's not as bad. But I still have some concerns about rebounding and interior defense. Yes, I just said that Wisconsin can outscore teams. Teams that can outscore teams have success. Defense isn't quite as important. But there are a lot of teams, especially on the high C lines, that are solid to good defensive teams who have a lot of physicality. Just the way it is. Purdue is just one example. Illinois is another example. Yes, I understand we beat Illinois. I get it. But maybe we played that game 10 times. Maybe we beat them twice. I mean, that was just things had to fall very nicely for Wisconsin to win that game in Japan-Urbana. And they did it, and the credits to them. But I think it's not like losing Jack Janicki, who's not an interior defender per se, but his defending sort of underscores for me, his loss rather underscores for me that they don't have a lot of top defensive players. Winter has had some really nice rebounding nights, and they've shown some improvement from the younger guys. Been some improvement from Bildauskas and Rapp. But generally, if they're in a bar fight, interior defense and its associated defensive rebounding, I don't think that's their calling card. And in tight 3-point games against really good teams at a neutral site in March, that is such a vital thing to have. So can I see a scenario where a really talented offensive Wisconsin team goes in, plays another good team, maybe it's a 6 seed, maybe it's a 9 seed, or maybe it's a top seed or 2nd seed, and they are hitting shots, but they're just getting out muscled on underneath the basket and not having the success that they want to have, and suddenly they're down 7 and they're chucking up more shots and things just spiraling it out of control. You could see that happening. Okay, so as optimistic as I am for the reasons I've said today, the purpose of this program was to give you both sides. And there are things that are fundamentally true about this team that give you great optimism about their chances of making a run, but there are things that give you great pause about the same chances. And let's finish the schedule out strong, stay healthy. I will check in many more times about Wisconsin basketball before the tournament, I am sure. But this is today's installment. Remember to like and subscribe and comment below. Love hearing your comments. Most of y'all, especially the ones who follow this podcast closely, you give me a lot of food for thought. Sometimes I read what you're saying and I go, oh yeah, should have had that in the podcast. So I appreciate all y'all. And Scary Alvarez is out.